Good evening, everyone. The time is 7 p.m. on Thursday, November 20th. I'd like to call this Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee order. Up is our land acknowledgement. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Tofino Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together for a better future. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated? Moved by John and Steve. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. First up is first is declarations of pecuniary interest. Any declaration? Sorry, I said that already. Sorry, jet lag is still here. Receipts the minutes. First up is may I please have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of September 18th. If we have any objections, I'll just go around the room and pick people. How about Sean and Jess?
So moved.
Great. Any comments or questions about the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Perfect. We have no delegations this evening, so we'll move on to our first item, which is the memorandum regarding committee reflection space design update. Presentation, but first we'll go to Michelle.
Thank you. I just wanted to provide a brief update of what we've been doing since we were last here. The last time we came to the committee was January 2024. At that time, we came with a number of different locations to collect input on. We came to this committee as well as the Accessibility Advisory Committee. We did some public consultation and reached out to community groups that would have some input into what would be suitable. We reported back to council, and town hall was officially selected as the location for the community reflection space. And then we continued on now with the design process. We're here tonight with a 30% design to solicit feedback from the committee and see what you have to say about what we're presenting. So I will hand it over to Adam with Photon. He is our landscape architect, and he will walk you through the design.
Adam, take it away.
Yeah, great. It's nice to virtually meet all of you who I
have. Adam, you're gonna have to speak up.
Oh yeah, here we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me better? Okay. Sorry about that. I have to get used to the kind of telemarketer setup. It's nice to meet you all, and it's a real honor for us to be involved in this project. I don't think I can say that enough. It's been very interesting. First of all, I already love the town of Aurora. It's a great place, and the people that we've met so far have been just the best. So I'm going to figure out how I can share my screen, and the first thing I'm going to do is to put up a plan, and you let me know when you can see it.
You can see it.
Okay, great. I know that sometimes just because of the software, it's difficult to see my cursor. So when I discuss things, I'll make a little blue square around it to highlight things. So from the onset of the project, we kind of wanted to understand what the reflection space should be. And we heard from Michelle quite a bit. That was our first wealth of information about what who in the community would be using it. Why had this even come up? What were the interest groups? How was the space currently used? How was it falling short in some ways of serving the community? And what was the community envisioning for the place to be? One of the things that our team did was take a look at the census data. It's just something that we do when we're trying to serve a community and see what's there. And it's a diverse group. We could see that right away. Um, and then, of course, we knew that the First Nations input and a lot of the drive for this project was coming from the First Nations group. And so we wanted to come up with some sort of a narrative, some sort of uh, a storytelling device that would help us find some form. How would we find form for this project in this space? The architecture is great. Um, we'd gone out a few times. One of the times was a early on a Sunday morning, and the sun was just beautiful. The brick lights up so red. It's a very nice building. That said, the landscape doesn't rise up to that level of thought and that quality that's there right now. But that's another topic. Um, what we came up with was this concept of there are many rivers. We're down here in this low spot to begin with. Many rivers have brought the community to this area. And we wanted to give that form and kind of tell a story through that as a river, as bringing everyone here, a pooling space, and then a pathway. And I'll start to explain that a little bit. One of the things that wasn't working for us that we found in the beginning was the flagpoles. They're all going in different directions. They've been backed into by cars over time. That's clear to see. And so just the interface with the parking lot and how the public gets here, we were suggesting over here is where you currently have the EV charging areas. And so moving the accessible parking over to this spot here, um, several of the people I spoke to on that Sunday morning, they were community members in their 70s. And I said, so does this space over here get a lot of use? And every one of them told me they've never seen this space used for anything since they've been there. And so there's a few factors there. It gets hot. I know I wasn't there when it was hot. It was actually kind of cold that morning, but I know space and architecture, and this would be a very hot spot. So we're suggesting opening this up, keenly aware of the employee door over here, opening this up for some plantings. And this is a 2.5 meter wide sidewalk that would lead people right up here. If you're having the AODA parking right here anyway, this makes a lot of sense. Meanwhile, the entrance to the building focuses right on the main entrance with an unimpeded pathway around to this side as well. Should someone be dropping something off and need to use a dolly or need wheelchair accessibility or an ambulance would, need to come in with personnel. So this is where the river takes off. I believe Michelle and Paul had shared some of the sketches that we did for this. Has everyone here seen those?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. We'll get into those in a minute as well. Anyway, so this was the river leading people down to the pooling space. This is the brick wall here, this area here. Of course, we're not removing that with the sign and the planting, but it's a major feature that we needed to interface with. It was going to be part of this reflection space, no matter what we did. So this is kind of the pooling and gathering area. It's the hub of this space and how it works. As it moves off alongside the building, there are several things that we looked at there, but what we wanted to do in this area is make a kind of graded energy level. We recognize that sometimes there are events with quite a bit of people and a place for people to large amounts to gather over here in this area. But someone who's grieving may want to separate a little bit from this. And so these represent kind of levels of separation from this area here. This would be a sodded area. And then there's a buffer, which is kind of it's not a space that you can occupy physically, but you occupy it visually, and it separates this area to a quiet reflection space in the back. There's certainly potential for some smaller pieces of community art back in this area, as well as up in this side as well. I'll explain this a little bit more when we get into some of the 3D renderings. I think that's easier to visualize what we're talking about. But for now, just an overview. This feature here, what we wanted to do as it's a reflection space, and it wasn't to take the word reflection literally, but we wanted a way, because there are so many different cultural backgrounds currently existing in the community, that we wanted to have universal symbols for grief, getting together or singularly reflecting on the passing of loved ones or tragic events. So in that search for universal symbols, we wanted a way to combine the earth and the sky. And this is a reflection feature. It's a water feature. I know as soon as I say water feature, it's a bunch of flags go up about maintenance and constructability and budget. And what we're envisioning is something very simple, where it can be dry most of the time. There's no filters, no pumps. It's something where when you want it to be animated, you can take one or maybe two 5-gallon buckets out and pour this in, and it reflects and either evaporates, or there's just a simple drain which comes out onto this sodded area, which is fine. And again, this is the quiet reflection space, and this is the forest grass patch area. One of the things that we noticed when we were really just sitting around and seeing how people use the site and seeing how the energy works in this site, we noticed that right here there's a stop sign and a crosswalk, and a lot of people from the community were crossing right here, and then they would walk down and around, and a lot of them were going to the just lovely trail system that sits back here. And it reinforced that this is such a high functioning community center. Not only does it have all of these internal features for people and support systems and venue spaces, but it's also this gateway to this great natural feature in the town. And so, number one, how does this place be a gateway to the trail system as one of its multifunctional tasks? And the other was thinking of a way. Number one, it's good to have more than one way to get out of this area anyway. And would it make sense for us to include a pathway here? So we've shown two things, and it came up with some of the folks from the accessibility committee as well. This path is realistic. That's how long it would have to be to get down the slope. And so we show this. Right now, with the preliminary budget that we were given, this was not in the scope to add this feature. And interestingly enough, it came up that there used to be a set of stairs here, but they've been removed. I don't know how long ago that was, but someone from the community had mentioned that. So we have this option, but then we also have this option here. You can see there's not the ramp here, and instead we just cut a space through this area. And the reason why is that we didn't want someone who couldn't navigate a set of stairs to have to go all the way around to here and make their pathway lengthier than it already is. We didn't want to make it harder for anyone to get through. So previously they would have been able to cut right around here by the flagpoles and go through. So it should be one of these two options. Again, there's just more cost associated with the ramp. It's not incredible. I mean, we're not putting in like a giant a giant water fountain or anything like that, or a negative edge pool, but it does add costs that I think would go just a bit beyond what the initial scope was meant to cover. But we're thinking about. I do want to look at some of the renderings together. Let's go with this one first. Um, we've added some people and some more planting to it to show how this would work. These would be the stairs right here, right out front of the landing. I won't bounce back and forth too much, but I just want to say we're looking from right here. We're standing here in this. So maybe the two gentlemen walking together just came out this door and they're standing here. Um, And you can see what we're trying to do is we're trying to open the space up a little bit, make it cooler, make it kind of a park itself, but still functioning as this gathering space for the community and ensuring that the carrying capacity is still there, right? We were looking at average numbers for big groups being around 100 people. We did a carrying capacity study. We were basing it on 0.9 square meters per person, recognizing that as an average. Family members, teenagers will stand a lot closer. Some people may be uncomfortable and stand further apart. So that was an average for us. And I think including the covered area here behind the pillars, which completely consider part of this space. There's no way to separate them. They work together. But including that, we were over 400 people for the carrying capacity for this space. But anyway, we wanted to open it up and invite, show that it was for more than just human inhabitants, right? There was plenty of space for, animating it with birds and butterflies and pollinators and things like that. And so again, opening this up and just this in the paved surface, which is flush. There's nothing in this that is harder to get across than a sidewalk. Um, these would be poured as independent concrete slabs, these here, and then the gaps in between would later be poured as a secondary pour. And we can vary the treatments in these from acid etched to sandblasted textures, very safe and grippy, but allow us to show different kind of aggregates in the islands that the rivers pass between. The flagpoles over here, they have they're kind of nestled in the vegetation. Warning, I'm bouncing back one more time. But in all the designs, they have a clear pathway that you can get over to these and raise the flag, lower the flag, stand by the flag while you're doing it. We've scaled it so that it's comfortable for people to do those operations. But they're nestled in. They're nestled into the landscape and the vegetation here. But we've provided seats because we know some marginalized groups or people with mobility issues, often the seating, we didn't want to have them have to sit far back. We wanted to add seating that was comfortable and close enough to the flag raising ceremonies. They could really be part of the action there. The bench that we've used it's a very, very easily obtainable bench. We're not trying to propose anything that we can't get for a reasonable price that's durable and looks great. Those are two things that are important to us, durability and looking good. And you can see back here in the pooling area, one of the things that you've seen in the plan drawings is this circular platform. And that was meant to serve the purpose of when the mayor wants to get up and speak to everyone, or many speakers are going to talk about an issue that people are gathered for, or maybe someone wants to read something because it's a group of people gathered because someone has passed. When we say it's a platform, it's seat height. So everything is multifunctional here. And in my past experiences, these things just get used all the time. From, kids get up and do little play performances on them, or little kids will get up and jump off of it. People can sit on it. Here in this rendering, you see a bunch of teenagers hanging out on it, right? Because I know currently they hang out on in front of the sign, right? When they're walking down, groups of teenagers will just sit over here and talk. And there's another spot for teens to be during the day or after school here. And a guy on the back playing guitar. Yeah, and then around the bend you can see the people sitting in the lawn area over here, and just a little suggestion of this is how the ramp system would work with the hill. Which brings us into something that I definitely noticed on site was just the general conditions of the slopes, uh, leading over here alongside the road, but also at the back where you have some armor stone retention walls. It's just sandy or highly erodible soils, and over time things have started to erode. Rather than try to introduce some complex retaining wall system, our solution for this is really to just regrade it to a stable slope. Um, it's a bit of a cut and fill exercise. While the equipment is here doing this work, I think it's just easy enough to, you have the materials there, especially with the armor stone retention wall, just to replace a few of the existing stones and pack some of that extra soil that we take out from the slope in and around that, and then seed it with robust vegetation, maybe put a geotextile behind it, and just help make sure that while we're doing this, we also just button up what's happening with the slopes in general. But easily done with the materials and the equipment that are here. It's not like a big extra secondary project. Um, and now we'll wrap around here and we'll look out into here. One of the reasons I'll say our renderings have been more artistic than realistic is that we've wanted to really hear from everyone before we got too committed and we're talking about absolutes with everyone. So you can see up here, this is the elevation of the sidewalk and some of the regrading of the slopes. So to something we can stabilize just with vegetation. Native plants are our go-to, especially in the river portion and the pooling section. But when we get over into this space, we do incorporate some other types of vegetation design. So here you can see the seeding along this turf area. It's just sod. We often are asked, well, we've done parks where the parks department just doesn't want any sod because they have a hard time maintaining it. So often when and of course that's always at odds with, well, but what's a park if I can't like sit down on the ground, on the grass, or, lay down and look at the sky. So oftentimes we'll use a seed mix that it's clovers and some other grasses that are so low growing that they barely take any mowing. Maybe in the spring and in the fall when we get the cooler weather and the rain, but most of the time they're just drought tolerant and highly durable to foot traffic. So there's options with that. But we do envision this as a nice lawn area where they can get out here, they can be in a smaller area. I'm sure you're all familiar with the dimensions out here. It's not huge. And this is the sky ribbon that's connecting us through. And so it travels through. We're all here and we're in this contemplation space. But we see that this continuation of earth and sky passes beyond where we can't go into a different space over here. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm sorry it's a little jumpy. But back here, we just put an image of some teenage boys that are obviously grieving. I don't know who it would be. It's open to everyone. But you could go to this space to kind of separate yourself from the energy levels that may exist out here as a little kind of timeout, emotional timeout space, and still be connected through what's happening and your community through this sky ribbon. One of the things that was mentioned, this red square here, not highly resolved right now, but it was brought up to us the concept of the wind phone, which I have to admit was not on my radar at all. I was not familiar with the wind phone. And as soon as I looked into it, there's a international map of wind phones, and there's a bunch of them in Ontario. And it's basically a phone booth, phone area. It's not, and they're the old school phones, not a smartphone. It's, with the coily cable, reminiscent of being at my grandmother's house and wishing the cable was longer. It's typically those types of phones. Sometimes it's an old payphone. And the idea is it's not connected to anything. And people have found it very useful to be able to go in and feel like they can talk to people who have passed and that those words will go out and be carried on the wind. People seem to respond to them well. So the only place that this section is habitable is, I'm going to bounce back one more time, is the wind phone sits here and it has an accessible path that just leads up to it, which you can't see the path from over here, but it does exist when you're circulating through this area. You can see the wind phone and you can go out and kind of be in this little expanse of just native plants and some of the forest coming down and surrounding it. And then here, our concept here is to grow an evergreen hedge. We will not install this day one and have it look like this, but over the course of about 6 years, we get enough vegetation, we can cut a hole through this. Lots of different plant options for this, but this passageway and this kind of barrier, this living barrier between, visual barrier between the rest of the space and the kind of calm, quiet space. So that's where we are currently with the reflection space, and just very eager to hear your thoughts. Again, we feel very fortunate to be on this project with you all, and all input is welcome.
Thank you, Adam. May I have a mover and seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion? Steve, seconder? Awesome, thank you. Comment, reflections from the committee? Bill?
Through you, Chair, thank you for the presentation. The last time we spoke at this committee about this particular project, the discussion was around appropriate space to differentiate between grieving and misuse of the space. So I see in the notes that and this was like, I guess the initial design was at the height of when we were seeing pro-Palestinian protests, pro-Israel protests and clashes between groups. So I see that there is the proposed design maintains a clear distinction from spaces typically associated with protest or political activity. And I'm wondering if you, through you, Chair, are able to comment on that, because I don't understand how there would be a clear distinction for a reflection space at a town hall.
Adam?
Yeah. I am having a little trouble hearing you, so I want to reiterate what your question is to make sure I understand. One is, how are we looking at the space as for the moments when it is a high tension space between varied groups? That's one, correct?
Yeah, how are you maintaining the clear distinction between a quiet reflection space and protest and political activity?
Yeah. I don't think with the tools available to me as a landscape architect, I can divide a space like this where both a highly volatile protest and a reflection grieving thing is going to be happening at exactly the same time. There are spectrums of intensities of events or timings of things, right? First, I want to speak to the really intense event where there might be things like anger around. A project for me many chapters ago that really opened my eyes as a landscape architect was working on the border crossing between Tijuana and San Diego. And the border guards, we were doing a tour and they came up to me and they're like, yeah, how's your landscape gonna stop a U-Haul going 60 miles an hour full of explosives? And so it led me to, I was like, that's a really good question. I don't know. And so I went right away and started to study like medieval castle design. That was my first thought, but it's pretty simple. And on this, what you'll see, my main priority here was to create basically a vehicle barrier, right? because that's a controllable feature we can cover in landscape. Armor stone and stone are as far as materials and labor costs go, they're pretty cheap and effective. And again, they're something that we can add throughout this space that also has other meanings than just a defensive barrier. One of the things that came up with Grandma Kim, and it's an obvious one once you hear it, is that for that culture that's inhabiting this space, places to leave tobacco or offerings like that are great. And so by making these little stones sticking out of the landscape, these naturalistic things and these little cubby holes and stuff like this, there are places for that. And so serving this kind of barrier and feature, it's kind of it serves more than one purpose. Again, we go back to a gradient of space and a calming of space. A lot of people can gather here. Less people can gather here. Even fewer people can gather here. You can't be actively involved in the fervor in this size of a space, in this much separation, visual separation, small amounts of acoustic separation as well are happening there. From experience, I hear what you're saying. I don't think we can expect the space to be able to handle a high intensity protest and maybe someone grieving the loss of their parent at the same time. That I don't know if I'm answering that well.
So when I go to Michelle, do you have anything further to comment about it?
Yeah, through you, so when we spoke about what was the location for this, that was identified as the concern with the location. It being a political center of the municipality, and sometimes that is where people come to express those more tense emotions, like Adam was saying. We heard those concerns the last time, and we did engage with the York Regional Police, their hate crimes unit, to kind of talk with them about all the locations and specifically that challenge. Their feedback back to us was almost yes, you could see it that way, but also this should be a peaceful space, bringing in those cross-cultural motifs, the idea of the river, bringing people together. If it's done correctly with the right vision and creating the right environment, it should almost have the opposite effect. It should be the space where people are coming to come together in those moments, not coming to express extreme emotion. But like Adam said, there's only so much that we can control that with the tools available, but that was kind of their take.
Any other comments or questions?
I would like to make an addition if it's possible.
Sure, go ahead.
One of the design layers that's just baked into what we do so much urban work, is the acronym is CPTED, but it stands for Crime Prevention Through Urban Design. I'm going to bounce back to one of the renderings. Well, here, I'll stay here for a second and then I'll switch. We want to make sure that this is a naturalistic space. Again, entryway to the wonderful park system, but we're also aware that we can't make secluded spaces with one entrance where it's not, you're completely concealed from every vantage point. That's not wise for us to do. We want you to have spaces where you can feel secluded, you can feel peaceful, you can cry if that's what you need to do. But again, and it's not like surveillance society approach to this, but for safety's sake, when we go here, we can see that it's secluded in a way. It's removed, and through the vegetation and the trees, it's naturalistic, it's calm. Back here, it's even calmer. But from up on the hill in this parking lot, you would be able to see down. You would be able to see into it. I just wanted to add that we do think about those sight lines and safety when we're designing this.
Thank you, Adam. Committee, any other members, comments or questions?
I had a question, if a practical one. Can you go back to the rendering with
Yeah.
Can you explain, is that a screen that we're looking at, or is that?
I think he's referring to the image of the sky.
This guy, like, is,
Oh, yeah, yeah. I just put it because this guy's up there.
okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned something in the description about a reflection screen, and I was like,
Oh, no,
wondering
no,
if we're
no.
literally
No,
putting
it's
a
not movie
tent
screen.
in the sky.
No, it's just that's approximately from that vantage point where the sky would be.
I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I apologize. We've had to throw in as much symbolism and stuff so we could move quickly, get feedback before we commit to anything. So there's always a fine line between it being distracting and, you know,
No, it's
where,
good.
yeah,
I had a quick thought, if I might.
yeah.
Sure, Jesse, go ahead.
Adam, you had mentioned two possibilities, the pathway down sort of from the
Mhm.
sidewalk as well
Mhm.
as the sort of around through the parking lot.
Yeah.
As you noticed, that is a really, really busy crosswalk.
Hmm.
And especially with the St. Max students walking up and down that road there. Is there any concern that if that longer pathway is put in, that might then become a shortcut, a thoroughfare that might end up sort of taking away from the space, or even, things get trampled, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. From so the way that I see it, the teenagers are they're just passing through. Um, I see it as a net positive if the teenagers start to use this space, right? To incorporate that group back into regular society is always something we're trying to achieve, right? We kind of have a soft spot for teens in our design studio. We think they get left out of design a lot. So one, we like it that they would come down and be part of the community center because often they're not,
Oh, for sure. Oh, for
right?
sure. I think my question was more people using it like as a shortcut to getting through to the AFLC, getting through down into the Arboretum area.
Yeah.
You know how it is when
Yeah.
someone, kitty
Yep.
corners a neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what we're intending, right?
Okay.
We want people to get closer to it and not have to have some sort of ritual that takes them to the community center.
Okay. So we're not
W-
concerned that it might
No.
like literally cause damage, I guess is what
No,
I'm.
no, no. So the vision for this is that I mean, this is a 5% ramp, so it's very easy to get down, very easy to get up, and it's concrete. That's how we would build it because we want to. That would be our preference. And again, that's why I said this may be beyond the originals. It wasn't in the scope. It wasn't, as part of this, make a ramp that comes down the hill. But we like it. We think it helps us solve some of the grade issues. It makes a very durable path. It's going to be there practically forever as long as it's detailed and constructed the right way. These are the little curb walls that help us. So, it might be like a 30 centimeter drop or a 1 foot drop in a place here or there, maybe a little more. And then nothing here, and there's plants growing to it. But it's clear to stay on the path. Yeah, maybe teens they're gonna jump from this one to that one. It's cool, right? But I think they'll probably take this rather than go down through here. And we can design the planting too. Like there could be like, ooh, don't go through there. There's thorns. Like, we think about the durability and everybody's kind of all the user types, right? Um, I don't know if that answers your question, but we don't see it
No,
as
that's
a
great.
as a negative, right?
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of receiving the memorandum and comments be referred to staff for consideration for further action. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. And next up, we have the sport plan working groups. So are you going to do the presentation? Haley? Oh, great.
Yeah.
So we have a presentation from Haley. Michelle?
Hello, everyone. Am I able to share my screen? I'm still seeing.
I probably
Adam's
have to
screen
stop
here.
sharing screen. Let me
Thank you again, Adam.
let me stop doing that.
Thank you,
Thank you
Adam.
all again. It's a real honor to be part of the project. Let me know when I've stopped. I am not as familiar with.
So you just click on the X that says stop sharing.
Uh-huh. X share, stop sharing.
Yeah.
Did I?
It's all yours, Galen.
Fantastic. Okay, hoping you can all see my screen.
You can.
Fantastic. Okay, hello everyone. It's my pleasure to be virtually meeting with you. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm actually at the Parks and Recreation Ontario conference, learning a lot of amazing things here. So Lisa asked me to come and speak to you all in regards to the sport plan working groups that we've created. So for those of you who have not had the pleasure yet of meeting, my name is Haley Jones, and I am the Sport and Community Development Specialist here at the town. Officially just celebrated my 3rd year work anniversary, and I'm a former resident of Aurora, and heavily involved in sport and recreation. And so it's my honor to be here chatting with you all. I really hope that I can get invited back and come meet with you all in person. So the purpose of today is to really bring you through kind of where we're at. I would love some feedback from the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee on one of the projects that we will be launching in 2026. So we're still very much in the early stages, welcoming all questions and all feedback in the deck that you received from our clerk's department earlier today. The final slide of my PowerPoint here has my email, so more than happy to engage with you all on anything, any questions, any lingering, hot topics or anything of that nature. So to jump right in, our sport plan update, I know Lisa Worth has spoken about this with you in the past, but you can go to aurora.ca/sport, and there is where you can find our original sport plan as well as our updated sport plan. Before we move any further on that, I want to acknowledge that our original sport plan is still very much alive. It's guiding us. It's still involved. The update was a much needed step to look at our current climate and how sport really had to change and pivot over the years since the original sport plan came in, going through a pandemic, things of that nature, and really focusing on equity, diversity, inclusion, and removing barriers in sport. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that that's where it is. You are more than welcome to visit. You are more than welcome to download a copy for yourself. Late night reading, if anybody needs anything else to add to your to-do list. So that being said, just a quick reminder that the sport plan update has 4 pillars. The 4 pillars being community and sport sustainability, sport participation and engagement, leadership development, and volunteer sport. And the final pillar here is sport tourism. And one thing that we've been able to do is really rethink how our sport plan operates. The biggest thing is that we took diversity, equity, inclusion out of a bucket and made it part of our overarching goal, with the notion there being that everything flows through our vision. Therefore, things like leadership development and support needs to flow through with an EDI lens. EDI, or diversity, equity, inclusion, should not live independently. And we're really creating new spaces in the world of sport by doing this. And conversations that we've had with other municipalities who are looking at sport the same way as us have really been reaching out in terms of how we're doing this, why we're doing this. And so it's been really validating to a lot of the work that we've been doing in terms of leading in this space. So why we're here today. So we have an updated sport plan action plan. And initially, when we got our sport plan update, we were like, okay, where do we start? How do we get this work done? And how do we make meaningful change in our community? And how do we support the people already doing amazing things? But in the same breath, how do we carve out space to make sure that we're creating a sport ecosystem where our local sporting organizations, or LSOs, our community sport organizations, or CSOs, can also see themselves as part of the sport plan update. This isn't something that is just for the town. It's really for all of us to be involved in. So immediately looking, as we did, at launching 3 different working groups, understanding that the saying around accessibility, when the big accessibility movement started, that nothing for us without us. So as much as we have experts on our team at the town, it was really to take a step back and say, let's make sure we're doing this right. And let's make sure we're engaging with people who want to be engaged with, which is why I'm here talking with all of you today. So the 3 big items that launched was the leadership working group, the governance working group, and the environmental scan working group. And the numbers you see on the left-hand side of the page are the pillars that this directly impacts or comes through. So what's also important to note is that everything that we're doing strategically links back to our plan. Which is something that should always be done. Sometimes we get really passionate about what we're doing, but really taking that intentional approach to make sure that the work that we're doing links back to our plan. So our leadership working group, we got this information. I'm about to talk about what we heard and the ideas from what we've heard. The consultants we worked with was Optimus SBR, a firm out of Toronto. And they not only had online surveys, but they also completed a number of focus groups, individual one-to-one sessions. All of our counselors and our mayor had an opportunity to meet with them as well. And so we took that feedback as well as the feedback just from myself being ingrained in our sport community through email, attending sports AGMs, those groups attending our Mayor's Roundtable of Sport and things of that nature. So it's very much a comprehensive, where are we hearing this information from? So what we heard from a leadership group perspective is we need more internal or current leadership development. We need more leadership for future leaders, and we need more tools for our current leaders involved in sport. So this was really born out of conversations with folks around how sport leaders are aging, how our sport groups really feel like they're not set up. Should somebody be sick? Should somebody look to retire? Should somebody look away? Kind of who's that next generation that is stepping into sport leadership positions? And all in the same breath, our current leaders are looking for more leadership development. So it's really twofold. So the ideas that were born out of here was creating a business calendar to help our current organization stay organized and also know what's coming up from an opportunities from the town or engagement opportunities as well. We looked and developed a workshop survey to get some feedback around what leadership opportunities do our LSOs or sporting groups want, both for themselves, but also for the people they represent. And we're also developing a current leadership and coaching pathway. This would be very high level, a crash course for anybody who's interested in getting involved in coaching. This would be something that the town would offer as a registered program. I've currently applied for grant funding to be able to offer this registered program at a much reduced rate. And what we were also hearing was that people don't know where to go to get involved in coaching. We know that the world of coaching is changing. We know that the world of sport is changing. For example, in soccer, a new mandate from the NSO or National Sport Organization is that every single person involved in soccer needs to complete their NCCP or National Coaching Certification, making ethical decisions, which for all of us and everybody on this call understands why that's important, but not everyone knows where to go to get that. And so this was really an approach to engage with people who wanted to get involved but didn't know where to start. So very excited that this is something that we're currently trying to find funding on, and hopefully we'll be able to launch in 2026, 2027 at the latest. The workshop survey is something that I have sent to Lisa as well to be able to distribute amongst the group. So if you would like to leave feedback, this is something I absolutely encourage and would welcome for you to provide feedback on workshops, not only the time and day, the length, but also topics. So we can chat more about that later. The next working group that was launched was the governance working group. What we heard was that organizations needed help setting themselves up for success. They needed more tools, and they needed more of scenario-based help. So what to do when. We know that ONCA, our Ontario Non-for-Profit Act, was launched and came into effect in October. And out of that, we have some organizations that are struggling or think that they're up to par and are really unsure. So we really looked at this through the lens of, again, supporting sport sustainability. What is the municipality's responsibility in making sure that our LSOs and CSOs can function at a high level? Again, understanding that we all serve the same community. So we have engaged with Sport Law, a gentleman named Steve Indig and their team over there, including Melissa Knox, to create the second in Canada LSO or sport organization manual. This would be everything from templates around disciplinary committees to how to set up your financial back in front of house. So there's a lot of information that we'll be launching there. The second one was finance information session. So conversation we had was around how do we make sure that we're setting ourselves up for future financial sustainability while also looking at different revenue streams. And then the final one was ONCA on the Ontario Non-for-Profit Act workshop. Quote of how this workshop came to be was, I think I'm compliant, but how do I know for sure? And so I've been able to work directly with Sport Law to create these sessions that are being offered for free to our local sporting organizations. So that's something we're pretty excited to be able to announce. And the sport manual will be coming online in January. So we're going to be starting 2026 off strong. So a lot of the feedback through the governance working group was, again, figuring out the table of contents. What are the templates or information that we're missing? And then also great feedback that came from that group was not only did we need to launch it, but our LSOs that want help and assistance need to know how to use it and when to use it effectively and appropriately. So we've also taken those other steps to make sure that resource is available. The final one, which is what I'm looking for in terms of feedback from all of you today, is on the environmental scan working group. The idea behind the environmental scan is to get a better understanding of who we're serving in Aurora sport landscape. And then looking for trends, looking for gaps, looking at maybe, communities or demographics through our census data to be able to look at and say, if we have X amount of a certain population as said in our census, and then we look and we see a very reduced percentage involved in terms of self-identification, what are we doing to help reduce barriers? What are the barriers? How are we engaging with those communities? Again, coming back to nothing for us without us. So we want to develop a baseline of who we're currently supporting in sport, not only from a demographic or self-identification perspective. I also have quite an extensive background in diversity, equity, inclusion, and gender equity in sport, but also examining the patterns of growth. We're very much past COVID, but we are hearing from some of our groups that they're struggling with registration numbers. So this is an active approach to, again, see where are we so we can know where we're going. The ideas that were circulated to all of you in the document earlier today looks at two different cohorts, looks at expectations and commitments, as well as questions and timelines. So moving into that, we're going to focus our time here on this section. I'm not sure if all of you have had a chance to read through that document, but what's important to note is that we're not looking to collect personal information. It's not going to be Lisa, I'm going to pick on you for a second. It's not going to be, Lisa Worth. This is her job. This is her age. This is how she identifies with her ethnicity. This is her language. And these are her sports of choice. What we're looking to collect is more trends. And we're also not looking to point fingers at our sporting organizations and say, you are not engaging or you're doing this incorrectly or wrong. It's actually rethinking that and looking at it as more as an opportunity. Opportunities to not only engage with our community so that they do feel safe, that they do access our resources, and our is overstood, meaning all of us. But it's also an opportunity for additional revenue streams and really making sure we're engaging. The next part here that I want to focus on is that there's going to be two different cohorts. the idea out of this was that all LSOs and CSOs, we do have a listserv that we work with, and groups constantly get added to this listserv, but all LSOs and CSOs will be invited to participate. They would be responsible for one survey a year, and it would take anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes to complete. They would have a 2-week window from when we would launch, and questions would remain the same year after year for competitive analysis, and it would be a 3-year project. So we're looking to collect data over 3 years. The second part of this is the second cohort, or more of the pilot project, so to speak. Everyone would be invited to apply, and we would look to choose 2 to 6. Again, we're very much in the early stages of this. I haven't gone through and figured out a criteria, so to speak, for how those people are selected. And we are hoping that we do get multiple organizations applying. They would still be responsible for completing cohort 1, and then they would have an additional part to their survey. And then this would be an in-depth collection. This would be an additional 10 to 15 minutes. And again, it would be a 3-year project. The biggest difference is that we're really going in depth with the second cohort. We're asking for more time. There's a potential of having focus groups and things like that with these individuals. Now the timeline. So right now, November 20th, we're here at PRAC. I'm also bringing this to the Mayor's Roundtable of Sport on November 26th for feedback as well. So there will be multiple engagement opportunities. And then January 22nd, I'm going to bring the Environmental Scan Working Group back together to look at the information we've collected. We are looking to finalize the scan in February of 2018. And then on March 1st, we would survey our LSOs and CSOs to see who wants to participate in the second cohort, as well as sharing information about cohort number 1. We would look to confirm cohort number 1 and number 2 by the beginning of August, and then we would look to create the business calendar for 2027. The reason behind using all of 2026 to get this up and running is to make sure we have the proper buy-in, make sure people know what they're committing to, but also we're looking to collect data in a yearly collection. So if we launched it, say in May, we're going to miss people who are still in their season until the end of August, for example. So this is really a slower approach to make sure that we're able to capture the information we're looking to capture. And so we would be collecting, again, based off of different timelines to make sure we're hitting the sports correctly. And so this is where I'm getting into that here. So we would look to launch on May 1st of, that should be 2027, I apologize. So May 1st of 2027 is when we would look to launch. Again, they would have 2 weeks. We would go through a reminder again. This would now be 2028 and then 2029. So one of the reasons why we want the surveys to remain the same is not only to collect information, but there will be some sport groups who maybe aren't collecting that level of information. And again, that is okay. This is an opportunity to have more of those conversations. So I gave you a really quick snapshot of a lot of work that's gone in with our community. And so the different areas I'm looking for in regards to feedback is, do we change how we have this set up? One of the things, if I'm honest with you, that I'm really grappling with is, when do we collect that information? A sport like soccer has an outdoor season and an indoor season. A sport like hockey has a summer season, but typically runs, following, I'm going to say, roughly more of a higher education or kind of an academic cycle. So there isn't really a right answer, but would love to hear feedback. The other questions are around, how do we commit, or how do we approach people to committing? Should cohort 2 have other incentives to be involved? So we've kind of flirted around with the idea of, bookings, discounts, and things like that. Of course, this would have to be part of a proposal to go forward. Thoughts on who should have the access. I have had people reach out and say, this would be helpful if I want to apply for a grant, for example, and what have we missed or overlooked? And I know that this is a lot of information. So where I wanted to start is just in terms of you know, should we change anything about how we've set this up, or do you have any questions or clarification on the information I presented? Again, I know it's heavy. I know it's a lot. At the end of the day, the rationale is to be able to break down barriers and to move forward and to look at how we can do things differently, or how do we learn from the people who are doing things successful. So with all of that, thank you, Lisa and Councillor Thompson, for letting me talk at you for so long, but I would love to be to have more of an engaging conversation.
Thank you, Haley. First up, can I get a mover and seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion? Shall vote? Perfect. Comments or questions for either Haley or Lisa?
Hello, I have a question. Hi, Haley. So I understand that the purpose of this survey is to collect information and compare against your census data and look for opportunities that you could address.
Haley?
Yes.
Okay. And who drafted the questions?
Haley?
The questions that are in the package that I had circulated.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So through you. So great question. We worked with Inclusion in Sport Network, ICSN, as well as with the Ability Center with Archie Allison. And I've also sent this document to our accessibility coordinator, Gregory Perry, in the town. And I'm going to say that's where the majority of everything has been drafted. And just between myself and have circulated to Lisa, have also circulated to a couple other folks internal to the town, as well as you.
So it seems to me a lot of these questions would require the LSOs or the CSOs to do almost a similar survey of their members. And a lot of them could be answered by the administrators of the LSOs. Was that the intention?
Correct. Yes.
Sorry,
So
sorry, Haley. Keep saying.
sorry, yeah, I was waiting.
It's
okay. Yes. Yes. Sorry.
Sorry, Haley.
Yes, absolutely. The intent is for the LSO administrators to either go through the registration database or to go through either launch their own survey. One of the important things also is that in the survey, there will be an opportunity to say, we do not collect this information. That will also give us a lot of information in and of itself. And one of the recommendations from ICSN, or Inclusion Canadian Sport Network, was to look at a multi-year collection of data to be able to see if sports start collecting different sets of data as well. Also familiar with some of our sporting organizations who are not aligned or who are not within their national organization. So our I look at Steve Forsyth and the Old Timer Hockey's League, for example. They might not have all this information, and so they necessarily wouldn't be part of our target demographic, but would still want to collect information.
Just speak on behalf of a reasonable sized LSO, it would be a lot of extra administrative work that you'd be asking those LSOs to do. And I'd question whether the juice is worth the squeeze. The benefit that you anticipate the town would get or they would get would be worth them putting together. It looks like quite an extensive amount of information you'd be asking to be gathered on top of similar surveys that each of their associations generally get them to do.
Really?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely agree with you. This is also coming from a position through some conversations and feedback through council, looking to collect more of this information as well. And then the other layer to it is that's why we went with the cohort 1 and cohort 2. So I'm curious if you're talking about both cohort 1 and cohort 2, or if you feel this way around a specific list of the questions.
I think half of the questions would be very complicated to gather information on. Half would be fairly easy to, I think, for administrators to answer. But again, I don't know how you would put that together in any meaningful data set that would help drive either those LSOs or drive the town's decisions. So
Jesse?
Just sort of to piggyback on that, I wondered if we have organizations that are, some are willing to participate and some are less willing to participate. Haley, you'd mentioned that maybe some of the larger organizations already have quite a bit of this data and it might be easier for them to participate. Do we end up in sort of a feedback loop situation where only people that are already participating are providing us with the information that we're looking for, and those maybe smaller groups or groups that are serving marginalized communities, we're not getting data from them because it's too much for them to participate? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely, Jesse. I think you hit the nail on the head there, and that's something that we're grappling with for sure. I've had some preliminary conversations, again, some of the folks that are on our environmental scan working group, but then also just through reaching out and just through other conversations, have really tried to take those opportunities as they presented themselves to say, what type of information do you collect? How much extra work would this be? Are we repeating, data and information? And then I would also say a risk that we're also taking is that some LSOs might be really eager and be like, yes, let's go, let's do this. And then after year 2, they fall off, or they start with the collection of data. And then what happens if we can't look at it over a cyclical amount of time, that investment, can we still use that information for the same levels? And the fear or the risk that we only engage with the same organizations is also something that we have flagged. And some of the feedback we've gotten from the organizations we worked with is to reduce the cohort 1 questions even more, and then to add, again, those perks, right? Why would an LSO or CSO want to participate in the cohort 2? And that's where, what are they getting? What are we getting? But all of that to say is, I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah. Michelle?
Through you, Chair. So just confirming, I guess, Haley, then this environmental survey or scan is supposed to be taking a holistic approach to all of Aurora sports. So the benefit of conducting or doing the survey and an LSO participating in the survey is that that's what's going to be driving the town's Aurora sport plan, and will be then providing opportunities for your organizations to get better facilities or whatever it may be. And then I'm looking at some of the questions like volunteer coaches, officials, and your high performance athletes. All of the answers to those are what's going to drive the other type of working groups, the leadership working group, etc. As Haley mentioned, the town is going to be offering coaching and certifications and like suite of coaching opportunities. And so these surveys are what's going to be driving the rest of the work that Aurora Sport is going to be doing for the LSOs and CSOs. So it's in the best interest for organizations to be filling this out, because it's only going to be driving the services that the town will be offering them for free or next to nothing. And then we'll be driving the facilities that are being offered by the town as well.
Correct. Yes. And so some of those questions around, athletes who are excelling at a high level isn't because we're looking to know exactly who that person is. It's so that maybe those are the sports where we're looking to work with the NSO or PSO to bring in coaching, certification clinics, officiating development clinics, things of that nature. But absolutely, Michelle, this is the data that we're looking to collect. And again, yes, examine it over a period of time. Conversations that Lisa is leading with our team internally to the town is also, how are we providing information in different languages? We know that we have an increased population of Farsi speaking individuals now in Aurora. How are we servicing them? What does that look like? What other supports do we need to get? And that would really enable us to be able to partner with different organizations to bring in more grant money. But then also to look at, again, from that strategic lens of what are we doing? Who are we doing it for? If we know that we're missing a really big demographic through sport, and again, this isn't just through the town, this is the much larger picture. And then the other caveat to this, to Michelle's point, is that this will be the information that's going to help drive decisions. This will be part of the information that's going to be part of my council reports. I do report to council at least once a year. And so this information will be included in all of that as well.
Any further comments, questions, Charles?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for sharing this. I think this is really helpful to have this visibility. I felt the last update was pretty high level, and so I think we get a sense of what's going on now, so I appreciate that. My reaction, I'm not part of a sports organization, but I do a lot of surveys for work. My reaction when I looked at the questions was there is a lot in the cohort one. I think the opt-out mechanism that you described of you can still submit the survey, but if you don't have answers to this question or that one, will be huge for people's participation. Because oftentimes if one question is going to take 20 hours, but I could answer 8 of the 10, that's the difference between whether I'll participate or not. So I'd make that really clear. And then a consideration for the cohort 1 questions would be to have, if there's like 5 that are absolutely required to accomplish the goal of a baseline of participation, put those in bold, put them at the top, put them in a big box and say like, you're doing a huge service to the community by really making sure these are there, right? I think you get a good chunk of the benefit of it and maybe less resistance to filling it up.
Great, thank you for the feedback. Any other
Thank you.
comments or questions? Oh,
Through you, Chair. Timing wise, I think again representing a fairly large LSO in Aurora. If there's flexibility in the timing in terms of filling in the survey, I think there would be more buy-in. If you asked me to fill this survey in September when the crux of tryouts and everything and the season getting going, that would be a hard no. But if we could have flexibility for the LSOs during their downtime to complete the survey, I think that would be a better approach than just a 2-week time frame.
good comment? Sure.
That's a great suggestion. One of the questions coming out of this that we will be asking specifically to the LSOs are when is the best time to collect the data? And fully prepared that, to your point, we may need to have 2 different collection periods. We may need to do one kind of in that April, May, and we may need to do one towards fall as well. So I hear that loud and clear, and that is absolutely a takeaway. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor of receiving the memorandum and the comment to refer to staff for consideration and further action? Opposed? Curious. Thank you very much, Haley.
Thank you all. Have an amazing night.
Great. Thanks. Next, we'll move on to the 2026 budget park projects. Matt, would you like to speak to the item?
Sure, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Good evening, everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'll just briefly touch on my attached memo. Essentially, this is a quick list of our hopefully almost approved capital budget projects for 2026. There are a combination of a couple growth and new projects and several asset management capital projects. Quickly summarize, the big project for next year will be the Fleury Park reconstruction and redesign. I'll just make a quick note. The titles in our capital budgets are often limited in length, so it doesn't detail the scope of the entire project, but essentially Fleury Park is a full redesign with the addition of a splash pad and a fully accessible playground, and some new pathways and shade amenities. And then some of the more general replacements. So Optimist and Atkinson Parks are both playgrounds that were up for renewal as per our life cycle management plan. The 2 oldest playgrounds in Aurora, and in lieu with our replacement strategies, that's the reasoning that they're on the list. And the other are basically continuations of initiatives that are multi-year projects. Happy to take any questions about some of those details. Yeah, thank you.
Can I first get a motion to put the item on the floor? Well, Steve, any comments or questions about the proposed 2026 projects? Michelle?
Through you, Chair. The Fleury Park renovation, I know the last time it was brought here, there was some conversations around like the ball diamond and the soccer. Are those being updated in this?
No, thank you. Through you, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. The ball diamond and the pitch are not formally being touched. There is a pathway we've incorporated that sort of loops around the ball diamond to add sort of a continuous loop for those who walk the park daily and are seeking opportunities for evening exercise or morning exercise or any time of the day really, but that's basically the only incorporation with the ball diamond.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. New business. Does anybody have some new business that they'd like to bring up?
Yeah, at the last meeting, last meeting, John Furman had mentioned that there was some work being done or some studies being done on an additional indoor field, a dome. And I wonder if that is still, if there's a progress report on that. As we get into the winter months, I think we're seeing a lot of stress in the current dome and access for groups. And I just wonder if the next meeting, John could give us an update on
I'm taking up that.
where his planning and current outlook is on any second dome.
Yep, I think our next meeting is tentatively January 15th, somewhere there, so for sure. Great. Anyone else for new business? Being online for new business, doesn't look like it. Oh, John? Can't hear you, Sean. Still can't hear you, Sean. Heard you earlier, but not now. You want to try and type your question in the chat window?
Now?
Oh, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just seconding the dome. If we build it, they will come. We see cries for more dome time. We don't have it. The fields for the summer, the 2 extra new pitches, 3 new pitches was fantastic. That solved the problem, but the dome is still a problem. Dome time is very hard to come by.
Make sure that John Furman comes back with a little bit of an update for us next week. Wonderful.
Cool.
See no further new business. Move for a motion to adjourn. Charles, all those in favor? Thank you everyone for your time this evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks so much.